The following is a Twitter Spaces chat with Dr. MENG-YAN shortly after the first release of the COVID portion of the Twitter files. Enjoy.
So therefore,
I want to pivot to Dr. MENG-YAN. How are you, Doctor?
Hi, thank you for the invite.
Thank you for coming on. Lucky you, I don't know the full story, so I'll be learning the story from you today. Can you tell us a story of what happened when you started speaking out early on? I'd love to know. I'd love your story for me and for the audience.
Oh, thank you. It would be a very long story. Let me try to be briefly introduce to you. So first, I worked in the University of Hong Kong at that time when the outbreak happened in Wuhan. It is a WHO reference lab. That means that is a top lab for the emerging infectious disease in the world. And I am a medical doctor as well as PhD and also virologist. I work on vaccines development there for over 5 years. So just at the beginning of the outbreak in Wuhan, the last day of 2019, I was secretly assigned by my supervisor, Prof. Liu Peng, who is the WHO expert, to investigate what happened in Wuhan through my own network. And my own network is broadly based in China and involving laboratories and also hospitals from civil to military. So what I obtained very quickly through the very top source is we get first-hand information that the thing is getting worse and worse in China. And at that time, remember, before 2020, China government knows the viral sequence and they suppress the fact. They don't allow people to get treated properly. They don't allow doctors to talk about the fact. And also, they suppress everything. And so that's why, from that time, I start to review what happened in Wuhan. And my work gets surprised by WHO experts because I was warned repeatedly don't cross the red line, keep silence. If not, you will be disappeared. So clearly, until mid-January of 2020, when I realized that things getting worse and WHO lies with China government and they cheat the world. At that time, they even claim no human-to-human transmission. While the outbreak already happened in China, I decided to review it all by myself, and so I deliver it through a anti-CCP media based in New York, Lude Media on YouTube. And I let him deliver these facts to warn Chinese Communist Party government to stop it, because if they don't control it at that time, things will getting crazy and there would be pandemic. Unfortunately, they did responded, but what they responded is just to cover it up. So I heard the Dr. Shiva and other doctors talking about the Lancet paper at that time in February 2020 when Fauci and other scientists worked together to cover up the origin of COVID. Let me tell you, that was one of the response through Chinese Communist Party delivered to the academic field to cover it up, because China can never let you know that was from the lab. And actually, I can guarantee that it's a product from CCP's bioweapon program. So all the things happened, and of course, when I start delivering the fact, CCP tried to disappear me when I was in Hong Kong, and I have to escape to US. After that, again, I faced
before you continue, Doctor, I wanna kind of split a line about your escape to the US, and just summarize and let me know if I got it right. I've been learning about, so it's called the lab leak theory. Is that correct, Doctor?
I would say lab incident, not leak. Lab origin, related incident, not pure leak, not accidentally pure accident.
Okay, so there is a lab in Wuhan that a lot of people are saying, and there is a good discussion to have, that COVID might have originated from that lab. And what happened is, whenever someone brought up that discussion in the early days, it was immediately censored and considered a conspiracy. Even I tweeted 2 days ago, that I was guilty when I started reading about it in the last few days. I was guilty to just completely consider it a conspiracy and not even look into it. And now, obviously, it's looking less and less of a conspiracy. So when you spoke out about this, you were pretty quickly censored, and then you mentioned that in Hong Kong, they were trying to disappear you. Is that what you said?
Yes, and also in America now, it's the same because China is still after me.
Okay, so what do you mean by disappear you?
Disappear is a word that when we are in Hong Kong at that time during 2019 in the pro-democracy protest, the protesters always get disappeared, and then they were found dead somewhere, even naked, and government claim, they committed suicide, and also they will say this is just missing people. We don't know where they go. They went. And as a Chinese person, I can tell you that it means Chinese Communist Party arrested them, tortured them, and even killed them or hold them somewhere you may never find. So this all called disappear, either in physics, physically or mentally, all disappear. So suppression is a disappear.
I understand. And before I go to Kyle, I have another question for you. What made you? What got you worried that you could get disappeared?
Because this is not a simple political accident, or it is not even just only about the academic compromise. So this is something related to the human public health. And also it's related to the very top secret in Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping's regime. It's conducted by People's Liberation Army, and it is globally organized after the outbreak in Wuhan, and to change the world order. And it's not conspiracy. You will verify it. And the thing is, now Chinese Communist Party knows that, because not only me, also many brave scientists, the doctors, and a lot of people, they are looking for the truth, and they start to reveal things little by little. So finally, people will one day realize that besides those compromised people or greedy business people, CCP is actually behind it dominantly. So China government will be held accountable as the common enemy for mankind. That's why they have to disappear every sound. So I am the very important part, and I know, because I know virology, I have my MENG-YAN reports reviewed in science that how they develop it and how the compromise happened, and everything get verified. So China has to disappear me as soon as
I understand. I understand. And then we want to go to you escaping Hong Kong to the US and your experience there. But before asking about this, I want to do two things. Number one is tell everyone that we do have a space we're preparing with multiple panelists to discuss the origin of COVID, which I didn't think was a point that even needed discussion until I started looking into it. So that's number one. We're going to be organizing that panel for probably for next week or a bit after. Otherwise, I want to go to Dr. Shiva and Kyle. They both have their hand up.
Hey, if you don't mind, Dr. Shiva, mine's going to be a short point. Essentially, when we're talking about disappearing, which we're talking about killing somebody off for political purposes, the listeners out there, they can go educate themselves. There's open source data about this. Operation Fox Hunt, it's a real thing. It's been going on for a while. It even extends into the United States. So it's a real danger. It continues ongoing. I've sat down with physicians from various provinces in China when I was working counterintelligence, who played me the threatening phone calls they got. And it's not just whether or not they were going to come after these individuals that I was speaking with, but also that they were going to come after their families in China and use them as a lure to extort them or to coerce them to come back into China and be dealt with. This is a thing that happens. It's a real technique used by the Chinese Communist Party. So when we talk about those things, these are not like spy novel type things. This is like actual Chinese operatives that will come into the United States. And you'll see some of these things. They're talking about setting up Chinese police departments in the U.S. They're working an intelligence operation where they're running down people that are enemies of the party, the political party, and doing things that are antithetical to what we believe is, happening in America. So people should know that.
From your knowledge, Kyle. So we're gonna get to Dr. Lee's escape to the U.S. But even being in the U.S. does not obviously mitigates the risk, but the risk is still there because you did talk about having Chinese stations in other countries, and I've read about this as well.
Yep.
That were
there's a Canada, there's a
US, it mitigates some of the risk, but it's ongoing and it's real.
It's all over the place.
Dr. Shiva,
yes.
and then we'll go to Sabine. Go ahead, Doctor.
So let me just make a couple of points here that hopefully intersect with what Tom Fenton said earlier and the previous speaker. Look, if you come to probably the 1 mile radius between MIT and Harvard, you will find the incredible amount of money that the Chinese government is involved in funding both of these very, very illustrious institutions. And so and this goes back to, I think, Kyle, what you were saying. This influence that takes place is implicit and direct between government and big tech companies, but it's also more of a swarm who people know. If people go to the winbackfreedom.com site, you will see a censorship network diagram that was submitted in federal court testimony, which lays out all the players. It's not just the DHS. These are limited hangouts that the Intercept is doing. If they're just talking about the DHS or just the FBI, it's a swarm of universities, Pentagon, very large private funders, and organizations like the AP and other organizations who are involved in this censorship network in the United States. When we submitted that in court, Kyle and Tom, the judge was blown away. And, my court case on this exposing the government censorship infrastructure, which was direct, it wasn't even someone arguing that didn't exist. In courtroom testimony, we have the government saying, because I criticize them, they used this portal, the partner support portal, which I believe probably still exists at Twitter, for government to censor a United States Senate candidate. This is the highest form of political speech. And when you look at that diagram, that's the diagram we should be talking about in this conversation, other Twitter files, because it's already been revealed. Now, what occurred in my lawsuit was that the judge said, wow, Dr. Shiva, you've done all this without a lawyer. I'm going to give you a lawyer. The lawyer attempted to throw the case because 3 days before the final hearings, the work products were to be given for the final July testimony, he said, just drop your claim against the government and just get back on Twitter, Shiva, and you'll be the biggest hero. This is in 2021. I refused to do that. The judge then sealed our lawsuit, Tom, on censorship. A federal judge sealing the lawsuit on censorship, which exposed everything we're talking about in Twitter files 2 years ago. I would not settle for simply getting back on Twitter and selling out, meaning not making the government accountable because they use this portal. Anyway, I filed the lawsuit as the judge ordered me with only one claim, the final amended complaint, and then I walked away because I just didn't want to get up on Twitter and let the government get away. But what I'm saying is we have a historic lawsuit which shows the direct connection between government using an infrastructure to silence a U.S. Senate candidate. That's already out there. So anyone arguing whether this is explicit or implicit, it's explicit. The other aspect of this is when you look at what's happening in science, the state infrastructure in the United States since 1970 has become highly centralized. Scientists using that state infrastructure can suppress any opposing viewpoint at this point. And that is, so I really, really want us to recognize that 2020 lawsuit has the entire infrastructure. It puts front and center people like the Murdochs, people like, Pierre Omidyar, people like the Pentagon, people like Harvard and MIT who were involved in building the state infrastructure, which I really request, if Elon Musk is listening, is that infrastructure still alive? And when will it be dismantled? Because that's the heart of the issue. And finally, when we talk about money, I think, Kyle, you talked about this, there is a serious financial inducement here for Twitter to keep these back-end portals alive. Section 230 immunity is for a platform. We know Twitter's valuation on $5 billion at $50 billion in valuation. Today's a 10x multiple on that $5 billion. If the New York Times had a $5 billion revenue as a publisher, they only get a 2x valuation, $10 billion. So if Twitter overnight became a publisher, they would be open to all sorts of liability. They would lose $40 billion in valuation. So I would assert, I think we need to come fully transparent to recognize there's a serious inducement for Twitter to keep these back-end portals alive and well. And that inducement is for Silicon Valley Because if these portals are taken away, the platform valuation is gone, and Twitter will become about a $10 billion company, not a $50 billion value company. But the fundamental issue is why do these portals exist?
I want to quickly jump in as well, Doctor. Just Elon tweeted 3 minutes ago, referring to the thread of the Fauci files just now. I'll read out what the tweet said. Much more to the Twitter files, COVID edition, than this introductory thread. Follow-up piece to come next week featuring leading doctors and researchers from Harvard, Stanford, and other institutions. So as Ian said earlier, it's going to be a pretty long thread, and there's going to be a lot more drops, which shouldn't be too surprising. Before we continue, I know Tom, Sabine, you've got your hands up, but I know, Dr. Lee, you don't have much time, so I really want to get through the story if you don't mind, and I appreciate you making time to jump in. So there's a quick question that is perfectly timed. Let me go to it. There it is. So ask you if the U.S. did you get any assistance from the U.S. government to escape Hong Kong to the U.S.?
No, I didn't get help from American government at that time. I went to because I delivered the message anonymously to the Luda Media. By the way, Luda Media's account over 200,000 followers was suspended when he revealed the Hunter Biden's hard driver things at that time. And the Luda Media, the host, helped me to find the kind of help from one non-profitable organization, foundation, and then I went to America. Turns out things become more complicated because that non-profitable foundation, which claimed to be anti-CCP and help anti-CCP dissident, actually is another organization pretending to be dissident based in United States to help China government control the dissident in the United States. And also, when I came to the United States, immediately, because the message got leaked from that foundation, so China government already prepared to stop me and deported me when I arrived at the Los Angeles airport. Luckily, the American custom officers and also later FBI Homeland officers, they talked to me. I spent like 8 hours there during transition. Finally, they convinced I'm credible and let me go to New York.
Dr. Lee, so you said at the customs there were efforts by the Chinese government to try to bring you back. Is that what you said?
Yes, China government somehow, when I was on the flight, they already contacted many of my friends or even acquaintances based in the United States and asked them to report it. I'm a missing person, I'm dismantled, and also China Embassy can get involved. China Embassy can ask America to deport me because I'm incapable, like that. And that's what I heard later from the feedback in FBI. And however, I need to appreciate officials I met in the custom. They all talked to me and also finally convinced that I'm credible and let me go into United States. And later, I went to different media like Fox. I met so many hosts like Tucker Carlson, Bill Hammer, and many. And also I went out of public event with Global COVID Summit doctors. I published my MENG-YAN reports. I talked to the intelligence community. I talked to legislators. I did hearing in the Freedom Caucus in the Congress. I have done quite a lot. And to be honest, I don't ask people what their real title or identity when they come to talk to me. I just want to let as many people to know the fact, because I know among these people who listen to the facts, they can verify by themselves. And finally, we will have a huge power to understand the truth of COVID origin. And I think we have seen that now.
Another question for you, because I know you don't have much time. If just for the audience, if you have questions, you can put it in the comments bottom right corner, and the team is going through them. And we will do a whole space on the origins of COVID, with a range of panelists with different theories. Doctor, you said now that you're in the US, correct?
Yes, I'm now based in US.
Okay, and are you still facing any pressure at all? Has the pressure kind of diminished as the as COVID got contained?
If you mean the threat or attacks,
The attacks or the pressure from the Chinese government to try to silence you.
Yeah, of course, always. If you check, I am a very great example for anyone to study the persecution from Chinese Communist Party and their allies, including Fauci, WHO, or compromised scientists. Because, for example, you just type my name, Dr. MENG-YAN, on Twitter, there will be hundreds of fake accounts jump out. Sometimes even I get confused which is the real one. And these are the cyber army. And you will see a lot of multiple language. And one report has published that they use over 7 languages to publish the post attacking me using comics, using other papers, and the mainstream media which attacked me as a conspiracist, including National Geographic, CNN, and also New York Times, and so many. And there are a lot of fact checker in the big tech to suspend my words, and all of that behind it, you definitely can find the money and the power from Chinese Communist Party, and also the agent from CCP are still looking for me, and they try to either disappear me in U.S. or bring me back to China. All the information, including my passport, was published online. They threatened to bring me back to China overnight. My family are held in China, mainland China. I can't contact with them, although I'm the single kid at home. All like this. This is all I tell how they try to disappear a person, disappear a voice.
So your family is held in China. What do you mean by held in China? They're not allowed to leave the country, or they're not even home?
No, of course they are not allowed to leave country. I can tell you just when I arrived to US, when I arrived to New York later, that was within 40 hours after I escaped from Hong Kong. When I called my parents in Qingdao, mainland China, the thing is my father told me, they are all at my home, from Ministry of National Security and Public Security and so many other law enforcement agencies with local people from Beijing to Qingdao, and they were at my home, and my mom already cried for over 1 day. And those people surveillance my family 24 hours, 7 days. They brought my parents into a detention place, prison kind of detention place again and again, want to know what they know about me. They forced my parents to ask me go home and give me pressure. And they also, my husband, another WHO expert, worked in WHO lab with me now, worked in the United States under the help from CCP, is also used by CCP to hunt me in US. This was already confirmed by intelligence. And also CCP's richest agent is suing me for anti-Asian on the federal court now, because that is the common trick they use to harass the dissident and waste your time and waste your money. So altogether, just studying my case, you will know how CCP is working all over the world and suppress the speech, harass people.
You've just inspired me to do a whole space on this. This is like a whole new level of censorship, and I appreciate you sharing it. Another question before I go through the audience questions: why? Why are you speaking up? It's just so much easier to just say, guys, I'm just not going to talk about it anymore. I'm not going to do any interviews. Let my family go. Is that even an option, or am I just too naive?
I am a doctor, medical doctor, and I'm a virologist. When I was put into the investigation, when my data collection, the information collection, intelligence I got, all showed that there is a huge outbreak and even pandemic soon, but China government, they intentionally cover it up, and they actually as one make it happen. And later I see WHO and other organizations work with China to cover it up. I can't keep silent. The moment
So you said, just to confirm, you said the WHO worked intentionally with the Chinese government to cover up the source of the true origins of COVID, correct?
Yes, because I worked in the WHO lab. I am part of that WHO team in the reference lab. My all supervisors are the WHO very reputable expert. Remember, coronavirus becomes a human disaster from 2003. At that time, my lab is the first lab identify it and also found out the animal host. So even Dr. Fauci respect my supervisor, Malik Paris, as such celebrity. We are so important in this field. So I can tell you, they all work together.
So what made you think or realize that the Chinese government worked with who on this? Was there any communication that you heard or anyone you spoke to at who? So what got you or is it just a speculation based on things that you're seeing?
No, there's like evidence for this. The EcoHealth Alliance's leading guy worked. I mean, and he was the guy who funded the Wuhan Institute of Virology. He was put as the lead investigator on this, and there's a clear conflict of interest when the guy who's responsible for the WIV is working to investigate himself in his own research in China. So, yeah, I'm sure
right.
Dr. Lee can clear it up. Yeah,
you are right. And however, it's much more than that. Yeah, there is evidence, and there are many things I haven't told in public yet because no enough time or good opportunity. But I can tell you this is not only like a speculation. First, I can tell you my lab also involved. So it's not only one lab in Wuhan. It is a network which is all controlled by CCP and their military. This is military civil fusion network. They are working on the same thing. Not everyone inside knows the facts because finally this is a top secret. You may contribute inside, but you even don't know you are part of this program. But this top secret actually, they started even 10 years ago when Xi Jinping became the chairman. He accelerated it. And also, what I can tell you is there are theory evidence. There are also more evidence that shows what happened in Wuhan is definitely not only a lab leak. But I just cannot explain everything here. And also, I can.
What would you say? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I want to add one thing is focus on People's Liberation Army found what they found uniquely from China, the bad coronavirus. Remember the name ZC45. So this is a backbone of the SARS-CoV-2. It is a People's Liberation Army dominated product.
So, Doctor, I just have. Yeah, Tom, I have one quick question. I'll give the mic to Tom. Doctor, what would you say is the one main thing that you saw? I know, so Ian mentioned one point. What would you say is the main piece of evidence that you have that the WHO collaborated with China to cover up the story and that you can share with the audience?
Oh, you mean the cover up with WHO? Okay.
The cover up, yeah.
Yeah, so when I worked with the WHO lab at that time, remember I was put solely to do the investigation through my network. So within several hours, I already collected a lot of things from Beijing and Wuhan, including the Beijing CDC, which is actually just handling that virus sample from Wuhan. And all these things like Beijing already knew it, Beijing is delayed the information, and also things in Wuhan getting worse and worse. Virus sequence already known. Remember, they published it half a month later. So all this, I immediately reported to my boss. We are the surveillance lab, reference lab, based in Asia. So my lab, one of the top responsibility is to let the WHO and the public know what happened within even 24 hours when the public crisis happened. However, the response from my boss and also another big boss, Malik Paris, is always keep silent. Don't cross the red line because China government will be angry. And also,
did they say explicitly that the China keep silent because the Chinese government will be angry, or that was?
Yes. Don't cross the red line because the first thing I asked my boss Liu Peng is, why do you want me to do that? You are the expert. You work for Hong Kong government. Why do I need to do that? I'm a postdoc fellow. And he said, because China government don't release any information even to Hong Kong, and we really worry about whether it's another 2003 SARS-1-like outbreak. And also, again and again, these kind of things are repeated, even until mid-January, right before I made the decision to take my life risk release aid. I always get this kind of response, and I say these experts, they got my information, they understood, but they keep telling people no human-to-human transmission, don't worry, and China did it very well. And also after that, remember I came to US at the end of April 2020. For 3 months, I see these scientists lying around me, which make me very shocked. They start to make up the scientific evidence to convince people this comes from nature. One more thing I also want people to know. I later, in mid-January, right before I reveal it, my boss asked me to find out the animal host. How to find it? Because he showed me one email with an animal. He said, this is raccoon dog. And just go to ask your friends in Wuhan whether they eat it, how they eat it, how they sell it. Raccoon dog was the one they want to convince people as the animal host. And my investigation shows that they don't eat it, they don't sell it, and you cannot blame raccoon dog in this outbreak.
Brian and Tom?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you about, I know the media has pointed to your links with Steve Bannon, who was a part of the Trump administration, and
yes,
they said that one of your papers was basically repeating a lot of the information that was found in a paper that was presented on Bannon's website months prior. Like, what do you have to say about that?
Oh, okay. So first, thank you for this question. Very good question. First, Mr. Bannon didn't know me until I leave Hong Kong, because modern media actually keep secret in case China or anyone can find me. So when Luda, the host, delivered my message for over 3 months in Chinese to the world and triggered China government to make a lot of response, at that time, no one knows who I am. So there is no way Bannon or anyone else can package me or ask me to do anything. And my words all can verify from that time to now. The thing is, Mr. Bannon, I think he helped deliver my words at that time when I arrived US. Because remember I said one non-profitable foundation based in US, it is called Rule of Law Foundation. Unfortunately, later we found that it's a fake anti-CCP organization. But however, at that time, because they need to let people believe they are anti-CCP, and Mr. Bannon was I think the board director at that time, so he got to know me. And Mr. Bannon and me, we have spent many hours talking about the virus truth. And he also invited me to his war room pandemic at that time to tell the audience. And I believe at that time he had helped a lot to Americans to know the truth. However, until last year, in July 2021, when I and my friend Mr. Luda realized it was fake anti-CCP, and we separate with that foundation, and we also revealed this to the intelligence community in US. The foundation owner, Miles Gore, threatened Mr. Bannon, and he asked Bannon to stop me appear on the War Room Pandemic or his other program. And so after that, I didn't have any contact with Mr. Bannon. And for my report, because I published YAN reports with my scientists in September 2020, the first one, the second one, October. So the evidence actually, if you read my report, I also explained in the third report you can find from my pinned tweet. So this report is based on what I found from January 2020, and I keep telling the media, the public about this evidence, and plus other more further analyzed scientific evidence altogether. I wrote it later, 8 months later, then I start to reveal the truth. That's why you can see some of the things already being told by me to public in media, and also maybe other people listen to my things or listen to the analyze, and again they presented on the media. Also, there are over 100 of citation reference in each of the YAN reports, which means it's not just I sit there, tell you what I analyze. It is academic report. So the things you mean public can be the reference we referred for the scientific analyze. And that is what I can tell you. And if you have other questions about Benno or others, I'm happy to answer.
I'll go to Sabine, and I see Tom dropped out, so I'll try to bring him up. Sabine, did you have any questions for Dr. Lee, or was there a separate point? Because I know you've had your hand up for a while.
It's actually a separate point, and thank you to her for being a hero in speaking up. I think that's very important to acknowledge. So if I'm able to...
Yeah, I'll give you the mic right after, just to see, because I know Dr. Lee has to jump off, so I'll give you the mic right after we're done with Dr. Lee. Sabine, you'll be the first to speak. Tom, did you have anything for Dr. Lee, or was it separate?
Yeah, I think I just want to emphasize what Dr. Lee said. She's facing lawfare here in the United States. The Chinese government uses our court system with the acquiescence of our government to target its critics with meritless lawsuits. And legally, I don't know what can be done about that other than the defendants getting them knocked out. But I don't know what other countries would allow a foreign government and their fronts to come in and abuse their citizens like this without some sort of check in place. And then secondly, the connections between WHO and China and Fauci are clear as day. They're working hand in glove. Judicial Watch obtained documents from the early days of the pandemic. The WHO, even as they knew China was withholding information, sent out a press release praising the role of all the various countries fighting, trying to uncover the truth about the pandemic. And they noted in the email to Fauci getting his approval, please note the specific praise for China. And Fauci said, okay, this is fine with me, more or less. And then secondly, in this WHO investigation that Fauci's agency participated in, where we sent people to China early on, Judicial Watch uncovered that the confidentiality terms for our participation in that was dictated by China. So we have U.S. government officials being muzzled and censored directly by the Chinese. So what Dr. Lee is talking about, she's not, this is pretty dangerous stuff in terms of not only obviously her victimization, but it's much more broader in the sense that our government's on board with this self-censorship and protecting China. And obviously WHO is a front. And we talked about last spaces how the Gates Foundation was in bed with the Chinese medical establishment too in terms of advancing its so-called public health interests throughout the world, giving them a say in how things are run. This is a topic well worth your listeners, Mario, further exploring based on what Dr. Lee's saying and the other information that's already out there that goes well beyond the censorship we're seeing right now.
I appreciate you sharing this, Tom. Sabine, so Dr. Lee, I know you have to jump off, so first I want to thank you for coming on. Any other panelists have any questions for Dr. Lee before we go to Sabine?
Can I quick ask, what do you think of the vaccine? How given all of this information, how would you combat this epidemic?
Thank you, Doctor. This is a very good question. I told people that I worked on vaccine development, and I even have my influenza vaccine patent pending in US. However, from the beginning of the outbreak, when I got interview from Scientific American in China in January 2020, I told people there won't be effective and safe vaccine in a short period. Don't expect for that, because when we talk about vaccine, we don't just talk about product. We are talking about something can both prevent you from the disease and also safe for you. Unfortunately, in the SARS experience, we didn't see that kind of vaccine work for coronavirus. And however, when the outbreak started in 2020, we immediately received a lot of funding opportunities. When I was in the University of Hong Kong, my boss told me, just write the grant. You can tell them you can do vaccine, and then you can get huge amount of funding. I studied again and again at that time. I don't think we can overcome the obstacles even happened in SARS-1. So I, of course, don't think we can overcome the obstacles for the high version of SARS-1, which is COVID-19 virus, in a short period and push it to the market. So I refused it. However, I see my colleagues and also the scientists all over the world, they jump into the grant opportunities. That's a huge opportunity for them. And soon after, within several months, they start to claim they have the vaccine candidate. And again, soon, EUA, within 1 year, was approved for different vaccines. What I want to tell people is, I'm not anti-vaccine. It's definitely, I'm anti-unsafe vaccine, and I always demand people to know the pro and the cons before you receive kind of vaccine or medicine. I haven't seen a lot of data which are necessary to prove the safety of the vaccine before it go to clinic. We only see they talk about neutralizing antibody, they boosting your immune system. However, your immune system doesn't mean you need always boost and boost. Overboost is high reactive, which you may heard some word, allergy. That is one type of the overboosting of the immunity. And also the immune system is so complicated. You cannot just using neutralizing antibody level to, especially it's in a short period, like just several weeks or several months, to tell you this is a effective vaccine. And also, like I told people, this is always fast variation, and you cannot catch up the speed. And also, what is the side effect? We didn't see enough animal experiment result, and we just push it to human, even push it to kids, and even mandate at that time. This is not acceptable. I have talked to Daniel Hosey, who is an NIH famous expert, and who initially told me that he cannot accept the lab origin theory. However, later he came to me and told me he really got convinced, and also he started to worry about the vaccine was pushing to children. That was early last year. But he said he can do nothing because clearly the whole group around him is pushing this kind of policy. So I want to tell people there are a lot of potential risks, and I don't want people to feel panic. If you have already get vaccinated, then go to check your body, maybe D-dimer or other things from those great doctors like FLCCC or Peter McConnell and the others. They could manage to help you to minimize the risk. However, just push the boosting again and again. I only can see a lot of profits for pharmaceutical companies. And also remember, this is EUA. That means when you get a problem, you cannot get compensation from the company. Your government bring your taxpayers' money again, pay to the hurt taxpayers, and finally it will be huge chaos in America. And so that is my brief summarize for vaccines. And if you want to know something about Chinese vaccine, that is another story because it's different type.
Thank you, Mario. Happy holidays, everyone. I'm joking. Merry Christmas. I just had a quick question for you, Doctor, because from what I agree with you about the concerning relationship the Chinese have with the WHO. This is something that they've had in the World Bank as well, where the CCP have basically lobbied the World Bank to artificially change or enhance growth numbers in favor of the Communist Party. But I do have a quick question for you about the information that came out of the University of Hong Kong, because they did state that some of your information wasn't necessarily correct. So I'm just curious because I've heard conflicting things from different sources about some of the information that you've shared. So I did just want to clarify specifically you talk about person-to-person transmission of COVID-19, and I do agree that the Chinese government definitely knew about COVID before it was becoming a public health matter. But I was wondering if you could just clarify a little bit, the information that you were studying at HKU, and why there was a conflict of interest between themselves and yourself.
Okay, thank you. So first, when Hong Kong you publicly published that statement, that was the day after Fox News released my first interview. And at that time, I told people the WHO cover up with China. And also, before that, actually, Fox News have reached to Hong Kong U, but they didn't respond to them. And also after that, the statement only shows that I didn't do the research in the Hong Kong U for human-to-human transmission. This is actually clearly mislead people because first, human-to-human transmission cannot be studied in the lab using human, right? So my information at that time is collected from Wuhan and Beijing and other places in China from doctors and researchers. So that already shows there is human-to-human transmission, and we didn't need to prove. We got information. China hide information. As the WHO lab, it's their responsibility to let the world know this truth and also give pressure to China government to handle it. However, it didn't happen, and what they can do is only to help China government to keep silence. And because Hong Kong, you know now, Hong Kong is not independent at all. At that time, most people still thought Hong Kong was kind of different with mainland China. But let me tell you, no, it was not like that. China government using the academic and also capital and also the all this kind of influence already controlled Hong Kong. So when I worked in the Hong Kong University, everything they want to collaborate with China is up to China government's direction. And it's not only we have to keep silence because China government can control it. It also they have to help China government to promote the misinformation like nature origin or don't worry about COVID, it will be under the control, all like that. So Hong Kong University is not an independent academic institute, and of course WHO is not. And people working in the University of Hong Kong, top WHO experts, they can easily affect those WHO experts, and so that's why things become very complicated. But finally, you see the result is cover up together.
Why would we think, Mario, that it would be any? I mean, we saw in the United States and in the West incredible censorship and suppression and punishment, as we're seeing today, of dissident voices. Why would it be surprising? It would be anything but surprising for an authoritarian, a totalitarian regime such as China, directly implicated potentially in this virus, going after Dr. Li as she's described. It's, I don't know why anyone would think this is a head scratcher.
So, Dr. Li, I've just got another quick follow-up for you. I appreciate your perspective. I don't necessarily agree to the extent that the WHO is completely sort of useless. I think every country will try and leverage their self-interests in a multilateral organization. But my other question for you is about the rule of.
I don't think anyone is saying that the WHO is completely useless. Only that they are undermined by Chinese interests, and this is factual. Since 1971, their entire and this is not because of corruption necessarily, right? But the way that it worked was, since 1971, the WHO shifted its focus to China, right? And this meant that they completely redid or they revamped their policies to be effective in China, and they've taken these policies that maybe are effective for China and expanded them throughout the whole world. And China is a less democratic country, and say what you will about it, but those policies don't work elsewhere. So when they start suggesting that different countries lock down for various reasons, they're suggesting a Chinese-style policy And this, obviously has terrible results in any democratic society, and that's why, the WHO is not necessarily good for the world interests, because of its policies are cut to be like a one size fits all type thing, and it doesn't really work. Anyway.
Yeah, no,
it's hard, but Peter, when you've got an agency like WHO being on the wrong side of public health and involved in a transnational cover-up on the worst pandemic in modern human history, the policies of which undermined the pillars of Western civilization, I think the WHO needs to be eliminated, and any good they, quote, are doing has been negated quite dramatically by their willingness to destroy civilization to help a totalitarian regime, and with policies that, frankly, were almost cut and paste from it.
Second, I want to just ask Dr. Lee one more question, if that's okay, Mario.
I'm sorry about that, guys.
No, cool, man. So Dr. Lee, just before you jump off, I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about the Rule of Law Society, because from what I understand, you were on there to publish push some of the medical research, scientific research that you'd done. But from what I understand, the RLS had not published anything of that nature before. So I was just wondering if you could outline a little bit what you went on there to explain and what impact you were hoping to have from it.
Thank you. So the Rule of Law Society and the Rule of Law Foundation are the two non-profitable foundations established by Miles School in New York. Those are the foundations I told people that initially I was cheated, thought this is anti-CCP organization. And you should know, if there is an organization anti-CCP and also can help the dissident in US, that would be so valuable for our Chinese. However, later when I get to know more about that, I realized that Mao School is Xi Jinping's agent. He claimed anti-CCP, but he never said anti-Xi Jinping. So basically, this is a very complicated and awful tactic from Xi Jinping regime to help to suppress the dissident overseas and also to reinforce his power. And however, I didn't have that kind of working relation with the society, the foundation, and they lied a lot to public about that. Why initially in my YAN reports, in the first three initially, I put the Rule of Law Foundation as the correspondent address because, first, very realistic. When I publish any academic report, they require for the correspondent address as institute or organization. At that time, I cannot use the University of Hong Kong and I cannot expose my living address. So I have to think about how to find an address. And at that time, because I was cheated and there are a lot of Chinese people also cheated by them to believe that is anti-CCP, and they support me to do the right things to reveal the truth of origin. So simply, I made a decision to appreciate all the anti-CCP people's this support because they donate to the foundation. I know many people donate, although the money later was misused, but I don't know at that time. So I thought they donate to foundation to support this career. And since I don't have other things to write, and also I'm the chair, the person that accept amount of the charitable amount of money for my living cost in New York, because at that time I have no other living cost. So I would like to use this way to appreciate all the anti-CCP Chinese people and even also foreigners' help. That is a very simple idea. What I didn't realize is it was used later by them to promote their things. So that's why when I realized things get wrong, I did the correction on the YAN reports in public. Actually, the foundation even withdrew my 3 YAN reports from Zenodo. They don't want people to read it, but we repost it and we did correction. We claim there is no financial support from the foundation to the research And all me and my other scientists, although they didn't use their real name for the security reason, but we all did it for free doing our own research. And so that's why if you go back to check the report, it already explained the things. And what the foundation tried to do is they want to sue me. They want to sue me in New York or in other place to ruin my reputation, to discredit the evidence I post to people. So that's why.
But Doctor, if I can just jump on that point, but because I remember reading an article in the New York Times, and for everyone listening, they're not necessarily my favorite publication. Before you jump on me for that, but they wrote an article suggesting that Bannon and others were using.
They suggest.
They suggested. No, I'm trying to find the right words. But they suggested that they're trying to use Steve Bannon and some of your points as a vehicle by which to politicize the matter in an anti-Chinese sort of rhetoric. What do you say to that?
First, that check the New York Times report. See whether the journalist is connected to China government, whether she gets financial or other any connections. And also, they didn't interview me. And even CNN, National Geographic, all this, they didn't interview me. They just write things based on the content they received. And let me tell you first, what I said get verified. Lab origin, cover up, and all these other things behind it gets verified. And what they said is nature origin. China is great, and we appreciate China's effort in anti-COVID. Do you think it's true or not? And also, I want to say, if you check the propaganda on, just check Twitter, check my name, you will find they're always using comics to link me with Bannon, Mao School, to show I'm a puppy. Why? Because this is a propaganda generated from China government. First, they don't respect science, they don't respect the woman, and they don't respect the courage. So they thought once a girl can do this kind of things, definitely there would be some other people behind to manipulate. However, either Bannon or Mao School or other people, they cannot understand the virus, right? They are not scientists. How could they give me something to force the evidence to promote these things? People are not blind. When millions of people all over the world listen to my evidence, including my co-author in the MENG-YAN reports, they all go back to do the research by themselves, and then they verify by themselves. I'm just a single person. No one can promote me to such position, become a top conspiracist, and get convinced. If Bannon can do that, then Bannon should be the king of the world now. But he's not, right? So the thing is, as I told, people may use my evidence to do other things for other purpose, which I cannot control. I just simply provide the fact and explain to people. And if you help to deliver the fact, I appreciate your help. And if you do something based on that, it's not my business. But just simply link me with certain person and claim that is anti-China or anti-human, anti-Asian, conspiracy politics. That is so stupid. I believe you can understand, and I appreciate your question.
Hey, Dr. Lee, what goes on here is... I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'll go first just real quick. Regarding Bannon, like the New York Times tries to paint him as an anti-Chinese racist. But if you actually watch The War Room, you'll see that he is a big, tremendous fan of the Chinese people, right? He has never once spoken out against the Chinese people. His opposition is to the Chinese government. He makes this very clear, and the New York Times and other journalists, they claim to be reputable, but they mislead their audience, and they try to mischaracterize who he actually is, right? So I would suggest to anyone listening here, just watch his War Room and listen to what he says about the Chinese people. He's not anti-Chinese.
I just want to clarify from my questioning that when I ask my questions, it's not because that's necessarily what I believe in. It's just what I think was an important point to raise to the doctor. That's all.
Yeah. One of the issues I think the left often uses, and Peter highlights the New York Times piece, is that when the left finds is kind of held accountable or runs into information that's unhelpful to their narrative, the way they handle that is they create a whole series of stories talking about how people they don't like, and meaning people we're all not supposed to like, meaning the establishment class is, quote, weaponizing the information. So it's one way to kind of acknowledge the information is out there without really conveying it in a substantial way, but it gives them the out saying, well, we reported on it, but the context of the reporting is, look at all the terrible people who are using this information that we're trying to downplay to advance their agenda that we reject. And we're seeing that with the COVID files, and obviously Dr. Lee ran into that directly. Well, we'll use Steve Bannon as an excuse to try to minimize the astonishing information that the Chinese not only were potentially behind COVID, but were punishing their enemies through these international organizations and medical associations who thought differently, including American citizens.
I think Grant had something to say, so let's let him go first. Grant, you can unmute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hey, Doctor, when in January 2020, I think it was late January, Trump was proposing to shut down China, and he was very adamant about it. And then he got slammed by the media here for being, I think, xenophobic or racist or whatever. What do you think he knew?
I got information from my side. I can tell you, Bannon and Peter Navarro both told me in front of me that that was because, remember, I delivered the evidence through 19th January to public, and also Mr. Mulder, the host, he was also a board member at that time in the foundation as with Mr. Bannon. So after several days, on 23rd January 2020, there were live video. So they appeared in a they called annual meeting for that foundation. At that day, Mr. Mulder let Mr. Bannon and Carl Bass and also Bill Gates to know that what happened in China from me and show them some evidence I gave Mr. Mulder. And initially, Bannon even cannot believe that. He laughed, said, "Hey, Mr. Mulder, they told me I'm so far-fetched, so extreme, so please be not more extreme than me." But then, luckily, the same day, because China government also responded to my revelation, they launched the lockdown in Wuhan. So right after that, Mr. Bannon and other people realized things get worse, and they start to re-examine Mr. Mulder's evidence. And after that, this evidence was delivered through Dr. Peter Navarro to President Trump. What I can tell you is President Trump may have done something not good enough because of interference from those scientists like Fauci or others after that. However, travel ban against China at that time is really a wise way, which actually President Trump is the only one insist on travel ban in a meeting with almost 30 experts. His insist saves millions of Americans because you can't imagine that happened in America and without any preparation, without any like the alarm, and China government intentionally cover it up. They want using this virus to paralyze America. And also I need to remind people, now in China, the current outbreak is also suspicious, very suspicious. I keep telling it through media and my Twitter for days. And this time we don't know whether America can protect citizens as good as last time initially. But if it comes to America again, it's really a huge concern that now it's multiple cities have outbreak, hundreds of millions of people, Chinese people get infected at the same time with severe symptoms, not only Omicron symptoms. And there is no information like viral sequence from China. And China is already reopened. The formal reopen will be started from 3rd January 2023. I can't imagine at that time this kind of virus tsunami come out all over the world. So I really want to let people know, be aware of the upcoming things. We don't want it happen. We have to prepare for that. We should not let Chinese Communist Party have any more chance to undermine your country.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in, like something about what Tom said. I think that whenever information comes out, people are going to look at the origins of that information, and nothing against Dr. Li Meng here at all, but you had this information coming from China, and it appears to have appeared on Steve Bannon's website, as well as information provided by Guo. Both men are convicted felons. I think that people have the right to question this stuff, and like Meng's saying, like Dr. Meng is saying, Li Meng is saying, I think that she has her information, but there's no evidence that the entire medical community can see that they can say, hey, this is 100% accurate. So I think it's important to have both sides here. It would be nice to have some other doctors here chiming in on some of the things that were in the doctor's report. I just think that for consistency and for a fair discussion, that's something that's needed.
We invite some doctors in here. Like 17,000 people in here. The doctors.
But to go back though, Brian, this is not what the debate was about. There was a debate about the origins of COVID. The Fauci and company were very nervous early on, and that it was potentially tied to their gain of function support that they later denied was taking place. And so the question is, can we have a debate about this, or does one side, which is what actually happened, those who thought there was evidence that should be discussed and further analyzed, that the origins was not natural, should that be censored and suppressed online? And the result was these big tech companies in league, evidently with the government, were suppressing one side of this scientific debate and punishing and banning those who were asking questions about this. So you're raising a question about why can't we have a medical debate? Well, that was the question we've been asking for 2 years on this. And the government told us you can't, and big tech told us we can't.
Sure. To your point, Brian, before I give the mic to Dr. Lee, as well, we have the main debate is going to be in 2 days. We've got doctors representing different opinions, different theories coming on to debate it with different viewpoints. So that's going to be in 2 days. Took a lot of preparation. But yeah, Dr. Lee, I'll let you respond as well.
Thank you.
Before you response, can you invite Andy Boston up? I can't seem to find him in the.
It's glitching. Just DM me the username. It's glitching a lot. There's a lot of people I'm trying to bring up, and it's just causing me a lot of issues. But yeah, send me the invite. Have them requested as well. And I'll try to bring them up.
Can you just send it to Mario? Send him the username. He'll be able to invite him. Okay. Thanks. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. And also, I understand Brian's question. Actually, as Tom Fitton said, we advocate for the open debate. I have wrote it in my Twitter and also talk about in media that I welcome live debate held by the mainstream media or whatever reliable media, and then we want to present the things for people to learn and to verify by themselves. Let me tell you, there is evidence. There is smoking gun. Why people don't know? Because this is denied by the main scientific field because of pressure, because of infiltration, manipulation, compromise, all like that. And Mario, could you also invite Colonel Lawrence Saling? He's a Green Beret colonel and also biologist who deeply involved into this investigation for years, and he's suspended now. And I think he also can help people to understand.
Yeah, Doctor, can you invite me? Can you send me through the username via DM? And before you do, I've just got one question for you, if you don't mind. What's your state, like on a more personal level? Like what it really intrigues me here, and that's why I want to do a whole space on this, is other people censored in China for various reasons, or not censored, silenced in China, or disappeared, as the term that you use. So what's life for you right now? Are you going to be based in the US? What's happening to your network outside your family, your friends, etc. in China? And what other efforts are you still seeing today? It's been many years in terms of trying to get you either disappeared or silenced.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to finish the question from Brian talking
Sure.
about evidence. Let me tell you, everyone, that why I published the first 2 yen report at that time, because I know I may be disappeared at any moment, and I'm facing the CCP and also their powerful allies. I have to write down the evidence, even if I'm disappeared right after that, even after 100 years, people look into my reports, they follow the evidence and then they check the reference by themselves, do in research, even they are just the primary school education level, I believe they can understand what happened. They can go back to find the truth, even I no longer stay in the world. So that's my whole idea at that time. And later, the third report published in March 2021, I further explained all those mainstream scientists' argument when they try to attack me, said this is not accurate, that is wrong. I one by one listed all the answers, and please come back to reference it. I believe that would give you a very whole picture answer for reference. And also, when we talk about Chinese people, people may think that it's far away from America. I say Americans know that America is a safe place compared to China. However, especially after the recent 3 years, when the pandemic happened, Xi Jinping believed he is winning. And also, when majority of Americans wake up, and even the Congress want to hold China accountable from the next year, Chinese Communist Party won't just stay there and let you do it. So now they are working with Russia. They're also working with other evil allies to fight against the free world, especially America. When Chinese people don't have freedom, soon after, no one can have freedom. We can say it's very urgent now. I see the things start to repeat in America from the speech of freedom and also from other aspects. And we need to know that China government is very powerful, and also because it's well organized. So they weaponized everything to attack you before you can realize it. This is unrestricted war, and I'm working with a lot of I cannot list the number. Chinese people in China and also people in America. We want everyone join us to fight for freedom. What happened in China is China government enhanced the digital control to Chinese people during the COVID. However, we still see white paper revolution happen. And we are so happy to hear Chinese people stay in China, dare to speak out. They need freedom. Give me liberty or give me death. And the huge pressure from government cannot stop them. They want to share the same value with America and the free world to fight against the evil government with all of you. And what I can do is now I'm a bridge. I have my own exclusive network, massive network based in China. They follow me and my friends because we are helping to deliver the truth. There is no organization. Every person is like one drop of the water. Like people said in the Hong Kong pro-democracy protest, be water. Everyone has their own special power and advantage. We all can do as much as we can to help the world fight for freedom. But if we give up, if we let them bring our rights and let them control us, cheat us, there will be no other opportunity in the future. That's
Doctor,
what I want to tell people.
I have another question on this particular point.
Please.
Again, first, I really appreciate you doing this, and I'd love you to get other people that I'm sure you're connected to a lot of others trying to get, or whether the CPC is trying to silence them. So I want you to invite them to that space we're going to do later. I'll DM you about this. But I want to ask you, is that strategy going to work? The extreme censorship in China, because we're seeing a lot of the younger generation starting to stand up to the Communist Party. Do you see change, or is it just too difficult, too entrenched into their system and way of life?
When people under that kind of strict pressure and also control and also propaganda, it's difficult for people to wake up and stand up. However, I can tell you, it already shows that this kind of measures doesn't work even in China. People start to stand up and also speak out. However, if we only let Chinese people work in China, like fight in China like that, and we just sit here to watch, definitely, finally, Chinese Communist Party will win. But if we all work together, it will change. I need to remind Maria and maybe Elon, definitely, I hope Elon Musk can understand. And actually, I want to talk to him to provide him more evidence that in Twitter, there are huge infiltration from CCP. Follow my account, and also I can provide you many other accounts to see who is behind to use either shadow ban, algorithm, or maybe manpower to control this, suppress this account and their behavior, their actions. Also, I can tell you very terrible thing, not only in Twitter, but also like Google, other big tech. CCP can manage to get private data from Twitter and other big tech. We have evidence from China that the people get arrested because they anti-CCP and we share their Twitter. So CCP immediately get their information from the registering information in Twitter and also arrest the person within 24 hours. We still don't know how exactly it works, but we know there is infiltration, agents, and help even inside Twitter. So I really hope Twitter could find out what happened and change it. This is not only related to Chinese people in China, because Chinese police overseas will also hold the same thing to Americans.
I've got two quick things before you go, Kyle. First, we have Keith Morrison. Dateline's doing an investigation into a lot of the things that you said, Dr. Lee. So I'll be bringing him up shortly. Perfect timing. And I'll actually let Kyle go while I bring up Keith. Kyle, you want to say?
Yeah, thank you. So, Dr. Lee, thanks so much for coming and speaking out. I've been listening kind of intently just to kind of hear where you fall in a lot of this. I've seen your story, but I'm not, but I haven't dug into it. So it's nice hearing just your voice and your real words, without an edit. My friends who have been kind of following this along have been hitting me on some encrypted apps and telling me, folks who worked in the CIA, they're co-signing on a lot of the things that you're saying, and they're saying that it's accurate.
So that was the end, pretty much, of the chat with Dr. Lee. I'm sorry for the sharp edits at the end of these chats, but these Twitter Spaces, this one in particular, I believe went on for over 7 hours. So I like to just get some important information from them, put it into a smaller, digestible video for you, and I don't know, I thought that was very interesting. I've never heard of Dr. Lee before, but I'm really glad that she now has a platform where she's not going to be silenced, and other doctors aren't going to be silenced either, because these are debates that we need to have and discussions that we need to have. So yeah, anyways, just want to say thank you for listening and following along. If you can, please give me a like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.